Welcome back to another edition of NFA, the segment here at Whale where we discuss different investing, quote unquote, aspects of the NFT space. As the name suggests, this is not financial advice. Again, want to reiterate that this is not financial advice and there's no substitute for doing your own research. For
Mhm.
those of you just joining us, I'm your host, Iluscavia, and I am a recovering TradFi professional. I have a background in capital markets where I spent over 15 years. In today's edition of NFA, we have Zoup, the COO and co-founder of Non-Fungibles. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me there. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you for joining us. For those that are newer to the community, they may not know that we used to have a recurring interview section with you where you talked about trends and things that you were seeing in the marketplace. So why don't you give the community a little bit of a flavor of what non-fungibles is and what you do there? And I'll tee you up nicely as we chatted the other day. I understand that February is going to be a very, very busy month for you guys. So it'd
Hmm.
be great if you can give the community a little preview of that.
Sure, definitely. So yeah, for the ones that don't know me, so yeah, I'm the co-founder of Non-Fungible.com. My real name is Gauthier, but everyone calls me Zoup. Um, in a nutshell, non-fungible.com is the largest data platform about NFTs. So historically, we've started in 2018 scrapping data for decentralized market, and now we are basically scrapping 100% of the Ethereum activity and the NFT activity on Ethereum blockchain. And now we support Running, Flow, and we'll be soon supporting a couple of other chains. So as you say, February is going to be pretty massive. Uh, yeah, I'm not able to reveal everything, but you'll basically have a brand new version of the website in a couple of weeks. The precise date is not in stone, but I think you will like this brand new version and brand new uh, let's say, style. It's not only a new website, it's basically a brand new version of non-fungible.com as a whole. So we are kind of in love with this current version of the website, but yeah, that looks a little outdated, let's say. So yeah, in just a month we'll have a brand new version of the website, a couple of new features, and we'll be publishing the NFT Year Report 2021, which is actually the largest piece of research we've ever published. So that's about 200 pages long report with basically everything you need to know about NFTs. And yeah, we have about 15 interviews, including one from Whale Shark himself, one and only. So yeah, it's going to be crazy.
For those looking at the stream, I had the website up, and right now I have the the location where you can pre-order the report. And you mentioned that it should be out later this month.
Yeah.
Um, so from that perspective, I will drop this into the stream text later, and that way the community can go and find it.
Hmm.
Um, so given that the report's not out yet, maybe we can spend a little bit of time just so you can give us a little bit of a tease of some of the things that might be in there. Um, from my perspective, I'm very curious to kind of get a sense as to what were your three main takeaways so far about the
Hmm.
year we just finished.
Um, you know, that's a challenging question, not because it's hard to find trends, just because it's hard to pick the three main ones. There have been so many trends over the past year. So I would say the first one is just let's say the global exponential growth of industry. And the thing is that no one was actually expecting that. So just to give you a couple of metrics about that, we've seen a five figures growth for the entire NFT industry. Basically, in terms just of volume of USD traded, it has been a 21,000% growth over the past year, which is just absolutely crazy. No other industry has seen such a growth over the year. And basically, all the other metrics from the volume of sales, volume of buyers, of sellers, everything has basically at this kind of growth. Maybe if it's not 5 figures, it's a 4 figure growth. Basically, we've seen a growth of 3,000% in terms of sellers, about 3,000% in terms of buyers too. The total profit over last year was of a little more than 5 billion, which is absolutely crazy. So this growth, to be completely honest, no one was expecting that. So the first main trend is definitely this crazy growth. The second one
And
is,
just a quick
okay,
question on that. Did you
mhm.
see that growth being primarily driven by new entrants or just higher velocity or just increased transaction among established participants?
Actually both. It started with the existing projects. It started with CryptoPunks, with a couple of other projects that were already in the space. But quickly, with this kind of hype, with the rise of Xcopy, of Pack, of this kind of blueprints of the NFT industry, we've seen more and more new projects, and basically new projects were popping every day. Bode Beard Club was definitely one of the main driver of this growth, just because so many artists, so many celebrities had a Bored Ape as a profile picture. So I would say it's firstly existing projects and seeing this trend, yeah, thousands of new projects, including extremely profitable one, uh, followed the trend.
All right, thank you for that. And sorry to, so if you could just continue with the other two takeaways you had for the last year.
Sure. So the second one, and maybe it's not a huge surprise, it's about play to earn. And my I would put a little bit of nuance about this play to earn trend. Of course, we've seen the success of Axie Infinity with a play to earn system, and obviously it's an extremely promising and interesting model, and it has been extremely profitable for millions of people around the world, and specifically in some um, specific countries like the Philippines. um, but on the other end, we've kind of seen the limits of this system, because the play to earn system is really, really focused on basically making a living from the game. So we've seen so many, let's say, drifts, or basically people trying to make the most from this system, and not, playing the game or being there to build something. They're really just, yeah, benefiting from this new business model. So if you just look at the value of SLP, or basically how the global trend for Axie Infinity evolved over the past year, it's, yeah, no doubt, but it has been a huge success. That they have basically just uh, that's a milestone in the NFT industry and for the gaming industry. But on the other hand, I don't think the system is perfect yet. So yeah, I would say that it was just a first version, something like a draft of what play to earn can bring to the global NFT and gaming industry. But yeah, there is still a long road to have a perfectly balanced play to earn or play and earn economy.
And given that this has become such a massive driver for people's income, partly due to the pandemic in certain parts of the world, have you noticed if there has, or at least did the data reveal that some of these projects, given that they were in such high demand, that they may have become too pricey for the main beneficiaries of this ecosystem to be able to participate?
Um, but that's hard to say. And that's actually one of the trend, let's say one of our forecasts for the next year. But yeah, there is definitely something like a split in the industry between the newcomers and the wealthy OGs, basically. So yeah, maybe I'll elaborate a little bit on that in terms of forecast, because that's definitely something pretty new, that we think may have a massive impact on the NFT industry, shape.
Okay. I guess the rephrasing the question a different way,
Mhm.
did you prior to last year, had you really seen guilds be a factor in the play to earn space, or is it really more that they came into their own last year?
Oh, yeah, sorry. No, actually, Guild is really something new. Um, YGG, the Yield Guild game, was there beforehand, but they really had a blast with the play to earn economy, with Axie Infinity, basically. But yeah, everything, all these guilds, all these professional gamers, were basically arrived and really boomed with the play to earn economy. So yeah, that's really a brand new trend from 2021.
Okay. And we got a related question. I'm going to ask it now because it is on the topic of axes. And this came from one of our community members, Subspace. He's asking, Axie has made money, so you can call it successful, but what about its longevity? Since players can leave it by taking all of their assets out, what is to keep them playing Axie itself?
And that's an excellent question. Making a lot of money extremely quickly is not a sign of success. So, our definition of a successful project or game is not that you just made money. Uh, we have been in touch with Axie Infinity founders for almost 4 years, almost since the really beginning, when there was just no interest around Axie Infinity. There was just one game among so many others. Um, so the fact that they boomed and the creative, they set up this a new economy is just a signal for the entire gaming industry and entire world that there is something happening there. But to be completely honest, I don't see this financial performance as a sign of their success. Their success is that they've brought millions of people in a game, and that even someone like me just enjoyed playing the game. After some time, I must confess I stopped playing because that took a lot of time, and I do have a little piece of work these days. But yeah, I think that yeah, the success is not just about being financially successful, and the longevity is not guaranteed yet for Axie Infinity. I'm pretty confident that they will find other ways to ensure this long-term vision and that they're actually building a community. But in the current community they have, I would say that maybe, I don't know, 70, 80% of the community is ready to drop just because that's not profitable enough. But after months and months and years, uh, they they are going to build a really strong community, a core of fidel users that are there to be really loyal long term, that are there to build something, to experience a game, not just to make short term money.
Okay. So, all right, that makes a lot of sense. That actually brings up a different question that I'll hold it for just a moment until I let you get out the third trend that you identified from
Mhm.
last year, and then I'll use it as my segue.
All right. So the third one is more about collectibles. Um, yeah, definitely the growth or at least the visibility of NFTs have been ensured by collectibles. Collectibles is not the easiest segment to define because there is a lot of blurred lines between art and collectibles. Are CryptoPunks art or not? We consider at non-fungible that CryptoPunks and board ape clubs are not art but collectibles. But I know there's a lot of debate around that. But the thing is that what we've seen is, of course, a boom, but as well some sort of a saturation. The market has been completely overwhelmed by so many new assets, so many, let's say, yeah, worthless copycats of valuable collectibles. Just because, these possible potential profit that you can make issuing NFTs. We've seen so many, variations of board ape clubs, of CryptoPunks. We've even seen some sort of weird mashups. I've seen some collections called Crypto Ape Art Block something. I was like, what the hell is that? But yeah, the thing is that more and more people of the last year just thought that just issuing something as an NFT was basically a value proposition. But the cool thing, the positive thing with that is that the answer arrived extremely quickly. No, an NFT is not a value proposition. You have to propose something that makes sense, something that brings value. Owning something is not in itself a value proposition. It has to be, related to something a little stronger. CryptoPunks, they are the first one. They are something like a historical assets. Board ape yacht clubs, they have, this influence because they have been used by so many celebrities. So that makes sense. I mean, you are part of this, club, of this elite of people that can use a board ape as a profile picture. But all this, it's not about thousands, it's about millions, about dozens of millions of assets issued on the NFT market. And we have a lot of metrics about that in the report, about the new volume of the volume of new assets. Uh, the market has just been basically saturated. So that's why we've seen the liquidity just dropping over the year, because not enough buyers, sellers, and way too many assets. It's no big deal. That's part of the growth, I would say, part of the learning curve.
Okay, so that might be a concern, but I'll circle back. I'm gonna kind of take a slightly different tack right now, and I'll ask you, based on what everything you've seen and saw and what you just discussed, what would you categorize as the three biggest successes of last year, maybe for a project or something else? And the
Mhm,
reason I'm going to ask this question now is because you started talking about how you measure success, how you define it.
mhm,
So as you discuss what you consider to be three successful projects or three successes from last year, I'd be very I welcome you to speak to the community a little bit about how you go about measuring this. What's your methodology?
mhm,
Because that'll help them understand where you're coming from, as opposed to just saying a statement without any sort of visibility into what drove that decision.
mhm. Absolutely. So yeah, the notion of success is definitely not that easy to define. Um, and I won't definitely won't consider a financial success or a money grab as any kind of success. We've seen a lot of projects making millions in a couple of days. Honestly, in the current market, that's not that impressive. It's not because you've made 10 millions and you basically just had a good marketing that you are successful. What we consider a success is basically having been being able to uh, create to set up a vision, having something like a long-term vision, being able to explain how you are going to provide real actual value. And there is absolutely no problem issuing tokens to fund your vision. But the success is about maturity, longevity, and I would say to having the courage to explore something new, something that has not been done, creating something that has already worked in the NFT industry just because you know that's some sort of a magic recipe and you just have to do the exact same thing. We don't consider that as a success. That's more of a copycat or clear inspiration of something. So, in terms of success, the first one, and that may be surprising, is the independence of the NFT market compared to crypto market. That's one of the metrics in the NFT year report too. Um, we've basically identified that the average price of NFTs is now almost completely decorrelated from crypto market. And that's a huge sign of maturity. That's basically proving that the NFT industry is now able to live its own life. It's not depending on any financial trend on crypto markets. So when I was talking about maturity, this is one of the main signal about the maturity of the NFT market. I'm not that impressed by that's about, sorry, yeah, 17 billion market. That's basically the metric we have for past year. We are way more impressed by how the NFT market is now able to live its own life and not, to um, have a positive or negative impact from the crypto trends. I would say that's the first success we've seen. That's the success for the entire industry, for the entire space, not only a specific project. Um,
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But so if I kind of unpack a little bit of what you said,
mhm.
you're placing not a premium, but you're placing a little bit of a favorable view on projects that did something new for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, we are in a test and learn up stage for the NFT industry. The more you try, the more new things you try, the more new crazy valuable opportunities will find. If you just copy what has already worked, that won't help the ecosystem move forward. So yeah, we have to dare, we have to try, and some will fail, but that's part of the learning curve too.
Makes a lot of sense. So what would you say were two other big successes from last year?
The second one is more about the art segment. The recognition by the big auction houses, Christie's, Sotheby's, Phillips, and others, starting to sell NFTs. Uh, the first thought we had about that is that it was basically just pretty opportunistic from these auction houses. They basically just seen some money and they just jumped in quickly to benefit from this market. But down the road, we really consider that as a success because that means that crypto artists are now recognized as, let's say, actual artists by these extremely recognized and famous auction houses. So yeah, I think that's an extremely good signal for the NFT space as well, specifically for this NFT artist. Um,
But would you
uh,
consider that adoption by a well-known auction house that is usually catering to a very affluent part of the kind of the user space? Is that really are you seeing more of that as indicative of where the trend is going, or that it's just that the people with lots of extra money are playing with this and it's not necessarily going to spill over into retail? Because to me, I think that what would truly be a success is mass retail adoption. And I'm just not sure that Christie's and Sotheby's really speak to that.
yes and no. Actually, they do. Even if they are not going to sell to the mainstream will know that Christie, Sotheby's, and others are basically participating to this economy. So it's more like a seal, basically, of a certificate that, okay, this has value. This is recognized by these guys. So I really see that as something like a turning point, as the mainstream will see that crypto art is actual art because of Sotheby's, Christie's, and so on, they will be way more confident when they'll be approaching the crypto art market. So I would say that's an indirect impact on the mainstream.
Understood.
Um, and and the last one, and maybe that's more a funny success, is more about the utilities. You may have heard that the Budweiser brand purchased beer.eth. And you know what? I really see that as a success as well because the use case behind utilities are not necessarily extremely easy to understand. That basically a domain name can be used to transfer money, that you can send money to a domain name, these kind of things that basically take a lot of time to process to really understand what you can do with that for the mainstream and I would say more specifically for brands. So the thing that such a brand decided to jump in and prove that they understood the use case behind Ethereum domain name service I really see that as a success because that means that the value proposition behind these domain names, behind beer.if, is now understandable by these brands. So that's just one example, but I really see that as a success because it's not only about the value of the NFTs, it's about the education around it. And I think maybe that's the last point, but I think the NFT market has made incredible progress in terms of education about what are NFTs and how you can use them.
No, that's definitely fair. I mean, I remember there was a lot of commentary when the beer.eth was bought, but it also coincided with that their purchasing of the Tom Sachs rocket from the rocket factory. And you also saw, I'd argue, more of a visibility when Visa very, let's call it visibly, bought their CryptoPunk,
Mhm.
even though they didn't buy it themselves and they used a third party intermediary. But long and short of it is that they still own it on their balance sheet somewhere.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And at some point, I'm maybe a little more perplexed about this one because it's more like, what are you going to do with this one? Is it just to prove that you are into NFTs? Is it just about marketing? Because, Budweiser with beer.if, they can do something. They can definitely use that in the metaverse. They can use that for a lot of crypto stuff. But Visa owning a pen, I'm more like, okay, it's cool, but yeah, what's the point? Why?
Fair enough. Okay, so those would be the three successes. What would you see were the three biggest surprises for you? Like what, like if we had to go back to the beginning of last year and make a prediction, what were the three things that were not even on the radar that um, wound up being a big thing?
Um, just maybe before answering this one, I just wanted to say huge thanks to all the non-fungible team that helped me finding these different answers because that has been a team effort to confront our different visions about what has been surprises, what has been a success. So yeah, I just wanted to thank them. So the first surprise I would say would be the, let's say, rise and fall of NBA Top Shot. Um, NBA Top Shot has been pretty discreet before 2021, but basically in 2020 it was more like one project. Okay, it was the NBA, it was on Flow, it's cool, but yeah, no huge visibility or success. But yeah, in a couple of months, it just basically skyrocketed, and I would say that almost disappeared as fast as they grown. So yeah, that's basically an extremely interesting case study of what was interesting and what was basically the weaknesses of their model. So yeah, I'm not there to elaborate on why I think they're good or not, but yeah, the example of NBA Top Shot with a massive, extremely popular brand of NBA, um, yeah, I think they basically proved that collectibles are cool, but they're not enough. But you have to build something on top of that. Just owning something is cool. Being able to trade is nice, but in the current industry, you have to propose more than that. So yeah.
Now, I actually want to dig into this one a tiny bit more, given that in the community we have quite a few members that are avid collectors of NBA Top Shots, and we have quite a lot of programming discussing the pack drops and the like.
Mhm.
So, when you say the rise and fall, I mean, NBA Top Shot is still around. It's not like it went away, but could you provide a little bit more color as to what's leading you to make that assessment?
So yeah, sure. So actually, compared to the peak we've seen, it was in I don't want to say something stupid, but I think it was in February, March, basically at the really beginning of the year. We've seen crazy, crazy interest around NBA Top Shot with so much, possibilities, so much promises around, yeah, what it's going to be. But if we look at the latest metrics, the latest volume about NBA Top Shot, it really looked like they've lost a lot in terms of volume, a lot in terms of sales over the year. Even if during all 2021, the whole market just blew up. But NBA Top Shot in the meantime just basically gradually decreased in terms of volume and volume of sales, volume of USD and sales. So of course it's not a crash. I won't say it was a bubble or anything like that. Just that basically they had a pretty different trend compared to the global NFT market. That's why I call that a rise and fall. But of course, NBA Top Shot is not is not dead.
Do you think that maybe there's an element of cyclicality given that it has to deal with the games being played and there's a main season, off season, or do you think that these dynamics that you're identifying are irrespective or independent of the season?
I don't think it's related to the season itself, specifically for NBA Top Shot, uh, but I think they can definitely have some sort of a cycle just by providing new features, new dimension to the game, to the experience. So if they really launch a crazy game around that, yeah, okay, we'll definitely see some sort of a cycle. But if it basically remains something, let's say basic, I don't think we'll see much cycles, or it maybe I don't know some extremely popular basketball players may announce something about NBA Top Shot, and we'll see some new interest. But I don't think we'll see some, let's say, um, cycles just due to the rhythm of the NBA seasons.
Okay, so thank you. That's very interesting. That definitely gives a different perspective on Top Shots. What would you say would be the other two surprises that you encountered?
Um, the second one is something we've already mentioned a little bit, is about the celebrities and the role they played in the visibility of NFTs. Um, you know, I'll just tell you a little bit of a short story that happened to me a couple weeks ago. I just spent something like 10 hours nonstop working on the report, and after that I was like, okay, I'm done. I just need to have some free time and not think about NFTs for a couple of minutes. So I just went on YouTube. Went to the account of a DJ I really like, which is called Timmy Trumpet, and I was like, "Oh, okay, that's funny. What is this profile picture?" And that was basically a bored ape. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's just not even possible today to not think about NFTs because they are everywhere." So the thing is that, and that's been extremely surprising. Um, Everyone has started to speak about NFTs, mostly I would say due to these guys. And I think it's something like a, let's say, cycle. The volume of trades, the sale of people, have definitely have an impact on that, on the visibility of NFTs. That impacted some, extremely influential person around the world, and I was absolutely not expecting superstars to use NFTs as profile pictures over the year. I was more expecting them to be like, oh, okay, that's a scam. It's brand new. No, it's not for me. That's about crypto and speculation. But no, I mean, all the largest DJs in the world and so many of the superstars just announced that um, they had a crypto, they had a punk, or they had an ape. So yeah, that has been a huge surprise for me, and that definitely played a lot in the growth of the space.
No, I definitely agree. I mean, the fact that we're starting to see digital identities completely associated with a PFP and then celebrities that are or other online personas making a big deal of that identity, I think is something that I wasn't expecting either. But it's definitely a
Mhm.
very interesting development that I've been keeping an eye on, especially when uh, when you see that it's identifiable people. So people that actually have their own brand are then associating with a PFP. I do believe that is different and unique as opposed to having someone that's anonymous using a PFP as their identity. That makes logical sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with that perspective as well. And what was the third largest surprise for you?
And the last one is maybe a little more, let's say a sad one, but I'm personally pretty active on some web communities like 9gag and others, and I've gradually seen more and more, mentions of NFTs in these communities. Where basically these guys are aware of NFTs and they have some sort of a notion of what it is. But what I've seen is a lot of, let's say, hate, a lot of fear of, yeah, that was just ridiculous how they hate NFTs. Like that doesn't make any sense. That just JPEGs. That's a scam. So um, I was not expecting the mainstream to react like that. And most of these persons are basically, Gen X or no, sorry, Gen Y or Gen Z. So pretty young people. And I was expecting this community to accept NFTs a little better, just because we have that much experience with cryptos. So I thought that yeah, there will be more curiosity, more like, okay, that's a temporary trend. There's a lot of speculation. Okay, it is what it is, but there is a lot of value, or at least being curious enough to consider this value. But yeah, what I've seen is really something more like NFTs are not a thing. And I was really surprised by that, to be honest. I'm
Yeah.
really curious if other people, sorry, if other persons in the chat have had the same feeling with other communities. I don't know if someone is active on 9gag, 4chan or something, but yeah, I've been extremely curious about that.
Well, what I was going to say is that we saw I forget which celebrity it was. I think in the past 24 hours, literally said, "Don't come talk to me about launching a PFP. I'm going to do things in the real world." And it seemed like an interesting departure from what some of his peers were doing. But just being mindful of time, I would like to get your perspective on what you thought were the three biggest either failures or disappointments of the year,
Hmm.
given that leading into the year, there may have been projects that had hype and that didn't live up to it, or things that were throughout the course of the year um, that high expectations and just didn't deliver.
So yeah, just like for successes, I'll start with explaining what we consider as a fail. So that won't necessarily be a focus on a specific project, to mostly like a general trend about the industry. Um, so yeah, what we consider as fails is basically something that we may have that was predictable. Sorry, stuff that were predictable, or things that are jeopardizing the entire space. Um, so the first thing that yeah, there's been a lot of noise around that is, I think his name was Dan. So the guy from OpenSea that has been caught, basically cheating and being able to know what were about to be sold to trade that internally. So internal trading at OpenSea. Um, of course, OpenSea reacted really well on that, and they definitely had a good reaction. But the thing is that's this kind of behaviors, this kind of possibility this kind of yeah, behavior and actions definitely have a really bad impact on the NFT space, just because these, let's say, centralized authorities like OpenSea, even at some point the world community, or even us at Non-Fungible, even if we're not aware of that on a daily basis, we do have a responsibility. If we misbehave, that means that even OGs like us uh, may misbehave. And, I think that I would say the web community, OpenSea, Non-Fungible, and others, like Axie and others, uh, we basically embody the DNA of the NFT space. So if we see this kind of bad behaviors, that will be read by most media around the world like the OGs of the NFT space misbehave. So that's why I think we definitely have a huge responsibility in our actions on a daily basis. We basically have to be uh, perfect, as much as possible.
I definitely agree that stories like that definitely, let's call it, lead to more skepticism from Main Street before they
Mhm.
can adopt a new technology like this. But couldn't you also argue that since it was the community that identified this behavior, it is sort of proof positive that a fully transparent blockchain leads to self-policing?
I've Yeah, actually, it can be read like that by people within the space, but I'm 99% sure that's not what media will take away from this story.
Agreed, but I think that also highlights that we, as members of the community, of the broader NFT community, that to some extent it is our responsibility to help educate and get the message
Mhm.
out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And to be honest, this event has been done really well. So yeah, they have been extremely transparent. They have announced it. They have explained what they were about to do to avoid that. So yeah, I mean, they have done what they had to do. But yeah, it's just it's basically a shame that it happened, and it's just a shame that someone uh, used his role to just make money. And yeah, that's it. It's at the end of the day, that's really not a big deal, and I'm pretty sure that this kind of stuff happened on other traditional centralized marketplaces. But we're in the NFT space, and everyone is looking at us.
Exactly. So, what would be the other two failures or disappointments for the year for you?
The second one is more about, and that may be surprising too, about metaverses. Um, that's definitely a trend in 2021, and that will be a massive trend in 2022, no doubt about that. But what has been disappointing, in my opinion, is the understanding of what is a metaverse. That's not an extremely easy to get concept, but with the announce of Facebook, as in my opinion, not been a really good thing for the NFT space. That brought visibility, but that confused a lot of things too. Because Facebook announcing a metaverse, it's like you now have to explain what is a centralized metaverse and what is a decentralized metaverse. Because if everyone understands that basically the sandbox or decentralized are exactly the same thing than Meta, that's a little more complex to detail the difference between a centralized and a decentralized metaverse. So I would say my disappointment is more about everything I've heard since this announced about what is a metaverse. The Seoul town, Seoul is about to create its own metaverse, and that's one of the trends we expect for next year is that metaverse, the word metaverse will be used in so many wrong contexts just because it's hype. So I think there is a pretty big misunderstanding about what is a metaverse. Is a game a metaverse? Is internet a metaverse? Is Facebook a metaverse? So I think that this massive announce brought much visibility to the metaverse segment and to NFTs, but on the other hand brought way too much confusion, and it's definitely extremely opportunistic from Facebook.
Fair enough. I would say that their announcement definitely brought a lot more attention to the space,
Mhm.
but I completely agree with you that it also has led to some confusion. Um,
Yeah, and I'm just a little worried because they have not entered the space for the right reason. They've basically just sorry, I just saw the post from Justin about the Macverse. I like it. So yeah, I think they just entered the metaverse and announced Meta because Facebook is not in a really good standing. I mean, they're losing a lot of users every day. They try to keep up with TikTok, with other platforms. So they're, the boomer social network. So I think the announcement of Meta is like, hey, just look at us. We're not dead. Just we are doing this crazy stuff with, NFTs and metaverse. And yeah, it's like, your old uncle explaining that he's really active on the internet and he knows exactly how to use the social media. That really resonates like that with me.
Fair enough. And what would you say was the last big failure or disappointment for you?
Um, so I would say the latest disappointment is about greed. And yeah, I'm a little mitigated on this one because that was predictable. We are in a gold rush. Everyone is just running to make profit. So yeah, I'm just maybe a little disappointed by the behavior of some OGs that really, yeah, prove that they were there to make just to make profit, and that it really seemed that some of these OGs slash large holders um, are not there to build something long term, but they're really there to benefit from the industry. And yeah, once again, I think we do have a responsibility of helping the space move forward because we are living from it. I mean, one way or another, the whale community is there thanks due to NFTs. Um, Non-Fungible is living from NFTs too, and now OpenSea and others. And yeah, when I see some OGs that were there almost from day one, just yeah, announcing that they are active for profit, yeah, just a little disappointed. I don't want to point out anyone, but yeah, you if you're active on Twitter, you probably have heard about these guys. Um, and just related to this one, that's maybe the second part of this point is about the wash trading and market manipulation. A couple of marketplaces offer rewards for trades, and it has really been seen as a as a cash machine by some stakeholders in the industry. So the wash trading report, sorry, the NFT good practices report we've published last year was really about, yeah, please don't think we can't see you. You can misbehave. You can just make as much money as you can in wash trade on the NFT market, but we can see you. And even if we are not a regulator, others may act against that. So yeah, I think we were just a little disappointed by this kind of behavior too.
That makes a lot of sense, and I again I can't disagree with your assessment there. Just being mindful of time, and that we have about 12 minutes left or so.
Mhm.
We do have two questions from the community, but I think you probably will cover it in the response to my next question. But if not,
Mhm.
I'll try and make sure we get to them before we hit the hour. But wanted to see if you could give us a little bit of a taster preview of what you see as the trends or things to watch for this year.
Mhm. Sure. Um, so the first one is about votes. And I think that's something that will resonate with the web community is that basically the web community and the vault has been the first one in the history. So, and it has been proven that there is something to make there, that NFTs can be a store of value. So we've seen so many new vaults appearing everywhere over the past few months and over the past year. But what we think we are going to see in the next few months and probably in the next few years is more official, let's say, institutional vaults from maybe governments, maybe from financial institutions. So I think that was what the Well community has launched with this vault. I think we'll see some more, let's say, institutional vaults too. Maybe not from the United States or the Fed or European countries, but maybe more from little less developed countries that really consider that investing into NFTs is a smart move for their long-term health. So and development, sorry. So yeah, I think that the development of institutional vaults will definitely be a massive trend. Um, The second one is more about something we've started mentioning previously, is about the split of the market. Um, I think that we'll really see two NFT markets in one. One market of newcomers, one market will basically be under the, let's say, 5K, 10K threshold, with, let's say, small holders like you and me being able to trade these assets. Um, and on the other end, we'll see, and that will probably represent something like 90% of the industry, of the wallets. And on the other end, a lot of assets will just be absolutely impossible to trade for the newcomers, or for, the traditional, for normal people. I think that board ape yacht clubs, CryptoPunks that are already absolutely inaccessible for normal people. I think that metaverses parcels will be part of that too. The average price is today at about 10K for a parcel in the sandbox. I think it's basically the same for Decentraland. So I think that we'll really see, yeah, two tier of assets, two tier of communities, with completely different trends, with completely different stakeholders, and these, official institution votes will probably be mostly composed of these blueprints. So yeah, I think that even if we hope that the NFT space will remain, decentralized, and we'll see a lot of equality, we have already started to see some inequalities in the NFT industry. So yeah, I think that will be another pretty massive trend, is the split of the market between basically wealthy OGs and the rest of the crowd.
And you don't see a sort of like a middle segment, because if we say that we're still not at mass retail adoption yet, you
Mhm.
have the wealthy OGs, then you have the eventual new entrants at the retail level, but people like you and me that not early, but we're also not late. You don't see us kind of being stuck in like a middle no man's land.
Um, you know what? I'm not sure, because I think that basically these extremely valuable assets will basically pump up to, I don't know, a million, 2 million, 3 million per asset. So the no man's land that may be in the magnitude of hundreds of thousands, there may be a couple of person able to navigate in this no man's land, but I really think that we'll see the bulk of the activity in terms of volume of trades under the 5 10K, and a couple of people and a couple of trades over the million. But this small tier of persons will represent 25, 30% of the industry.
Okay.
What do I say? Uh, and I think that's the last one, is about. I don't want to be pessimistic, just a thought. That may be more about the a potential, let's say, Mount Gox of NFTs. You know what? I think that we've built a lot over the past months and years, and everyone had to build extremely quickly a lot of stuff. And that in this kind of situation, it's mostly about you have to deliver fast, not necessarily about you have to deliver well, or you have to deliver something extremely secured. So I really think that right now a lot of the marketplaces uh, do have failures, or breaches. Sorry, and but at some point, even if they are definitely working really hard to secure these breaches, we may see something like that. And I don't think that's a bad thing, honestly. I really, really deeply think that um, learning by falling that's the hard way, but that's necessary. So I really think that at some point we'll have this kind of massive hack where millions, maybe billions, will be stolen or will be destroyed or something like that. I don't say that I expect that, but I'd like that to happen. But I really think that in the current trend, with so many new projects, with so many new features delivered every day, with this, uh, everyone is basically in a hurry to deliver fast. So I think that will happen, and that will, yeah, that will bring a lot of bad buzz around NFTs. But I think we're used to that. We don't really care about it anymore. And on the other end, that will recall to every developer, every project manager, that you don't never forget security. We are on the blockchain. You think you are secure because of blockchain, but no, blockchain is not securing everything from A to Z. You have to secure your smart contract. You have to avoid breaches.
Well, no, that's a very interesting perspective. Although I'll make one slight pushback. The difference between Mt. Gox and some of the NFT marketplaces is the difference between custodial and non-custodial. Mt.
Mhm.
Gox had them all, whereas like if you're using an OpenSea, they don't custody your assets. They're
Yep.
still in your wallet. You just kind of grant the permission to the contract.
Mhm.
So I guess there might be a little bit more nuance there. I did want to quickly hit a couple of the questions that came in from the community. Just if we could just do this rapid fire, we'll end on time. The first one was, what is your opinion regarding other blockchains besides Ethereum, which are ascending and which are dying or stagnant?
Um, Maybe it's a little too soon to say that some are dying. Regarding other blockchains, we definitely have seen a lot of new blockchain, new standards, new sidechains um, that allow NFTs to be traded. Um, I may be personally a little skeptical about Solana because uh, not because I don't like Solana at all, just because I see a pretty massive gap between the hype around Solana and the value of Sol and the global market cap around their token and the current state of NFT industry on Solana. We do have a couple of insights about that, even if we don't track Solana for now. So yeah, I'm maybe just more a little curious about Solana for that reason. But yeah, definitely takes time to develop a complete ecosystem. Uh, I'm not that curious about the Binance Smart Chain because what Binance did with the Binance Smart Chain and the NFT marketplace was definitely not the smartest move ever. So yeah, I mean, if you have to launch NFTs, I would say please choose another blockchain than the BSC. Um, on the other Polygon, Tezos, Ronin is a little different, but yeah, I definitely think there is a lot of cool opportunities there. I'm personally a little bullish on Immutable X, which I think is really interesting. I What I find interesting there is that they're not doing that much marketing. They are just working extremely hard on building a pretty solid technology. And if you just look at all the announcements from different projects, I know that Sorare has moved to Immutable X. TikTok is using Immutable X, Ghost Chain, of course, Ember Sword as well. So yeah, no financial advice, of course, but just that, yeah, I think that they have this right approach of let's build something strong, something robust, and when that will be ready, let's communicate on that.
Right. Thank you. And I appreciate you saying the not financial advice. It always is good to remind the listeners about that, but hopefully they recognize it is the name of the show. Um, last question that
Yeah.
I'm going to get to, just because we're almost, well, actually we're at the hour mark, but I think this is a pretty good question to kind of close out on. And I'll just read it verbatim. Legacy works from OGs have historical precedent and should continue to appreciate. The market growth now is driven by the attention economy and community high liquidity PFP projects. That being the case, is it possible for new modern art focused NFTs to appreciate and value the same way as their predecessors?
Wow. Yeah, I'm really sorry. I think I have to ask you to repeat this one because maybe I'm a little too French, but that was a complex one.
Fair enough. So the way I'm interpreting the question is that a lot of the new growth in the market's driven by attention economy, so high
Uh-huh.
liquidity PFPs and community.
Hmm.
And it's not exactly the same dynamics as what the OGs experienced, at least early on.
Hmm.
So given that interplay of those dynamics, of the way that those two dynamics are kind of like are opposed, is it possible that the new NFTs that are more modern art could they appreciate similarly to the OGs, or will they need to have that sort of community and PFP elements in order to be successful?
Mm, you know what? I think it's not totally binary. I think that's definitely both have an impact on each other. If you have, this attention economy, I'll take the example of Metaverse, and some new, most recent collections that just basically get so much hype extremely fast. Um, you have this huge community of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people just getting crazy about a collection, and that definitely brings that definitely brings some visibility, and so whales and OGs are looking at this collection just because something's happening here. And on the other end, the fact that OGs purchase some assets from certain artists or something will bring visibility to these artists, and so the mainstream will look at that. So I think that basically um, it's not necessarily about the kind of asset or the momentum, the dynamic around the collection of the asset. It's more that there are different kind of influence in this industry, and these trends are moving pretty quickly, and you can get a sense of that on Twitter, but that's not the only channel. But OGs impact the mainstream, mainstream impact OGs in their choice, because you may feel as a boomer in the NFT industry extremely quickly, just because you are 3 years old. You are old. You are just outdated. So you have to keep up with all these new trends. So yeah, I would say that's a complex dynamic between both. That yeah, both definitely have an impact on each other. Have I answered your question or not?
I'll leave it to the community to decide, given that it was a community question. I do agree that there is a sort of a circular influence cycle,
Hmm.
but I guess the question becomes, um, which will be the methodology that will be required in order to have success in the future. And I guess that only time will tell. On that note, I want to
Hmm.
say thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for joining us. I'm glad that we are reestablishing an ongoing dialogue with you, and or rather, an ongoing community dialogue, because we were still in dialogue with you. Um, and I look forward to the next time we can have you on. So once again,
Awesome.
thank you for joining us. And on that note, this was another edition of NFA.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and thank you to the Well community.
Bye. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.